You're listening to the Reinvest Podcast, where each Tuesday we show business owners and entrepreneurs how to reclaim, reconnect, and refocus their life by bringing you the top real estate professionals in the industry. We'll help you diversify into real estate by equipping you with the tools and tactics to build generational wealth. Your hosts, Garrett Gatton and Seth Ciminillo. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of the Reinvest Podcast. We have been at this for 2.5 years now. We've covered a lot of ground, met a lot of people, heard a lot of stories, and what amazes me is every guest is different in terms of their approach with real estate, but then you get to really see the distilled principles that bring people success that are tried and true. So
in these last 2.5 years, I think collectively we've had 4 kids.
Wow.
Is that right? How old is your second youngest?
Let's see here. 2. Yeah, 2.
So we've had 4 kids since
Yep.
we've started this podcast. So
Yep.
if nothing else, we've been successful at that.
Yeah, definitely. Growing families. And hopefully, if you listen to last week's episode, you'll get to hear kind of my investment journey with my wife, Lydia, and kind of where we started 5 years ago. And we often talk about not trying to over-glorify real estate. That seems to be a pretty common thing from the clickbait section of YouTube, is that you're just 30 days away from $10,000 in passive income. But it's not that easy. And there are things that you need to employ consistently. So hopefully last week's episode will encourage you kind of our journey and how we're still grinding and trying to move forward. So just a few housekeeping things. Level 5 Capital. If you haven't joined the Huddle yet, which is our monthly newsletter, do that. Show notes will take you that link there, and you can stay updated on our deal flow. That would be opportunities for you as a potential investor. And then also what's going on at a macro level in our economy, in the country as it pertains to commercial real estate. But we have a great guest today, and I want to jump in so we do service to having enough time to cover his story. So with us today is Casey Calhoun, a fellow Buckeye. Casey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Seth and Garrett.
So Casey, you're in Columbus. You are also, fun fact, and this is a lead-in for you to tell us about kind of your family, is you are a twin. Is that right?
I am a twin. That's good homework. Good homework on that.
Are identical twin or paternal?
Very, very paternal or fraternal, whatever the word is, not
Fraternal,
identical.
right. Yeah.
Yes. So born and raised in Columbus, born and bred. All my family went to Ohio State. My mom's worked 35 years at Ohio State. My grandparents met at Ohio State. So go Bucks.
Right.
But yes, I have a twin. So I grew up in Columbus, stayed here during OSU, stayed here after graduating from OSU. Been able to see the city grow, been able to see the community grow. My family, I didn't come in a real estate family. My mom worked 35 years at OSU. My dad worked 35 years with the Air National Guard. My older brother is a doctor at Johns Hopkins, and
Oh, wow.
and my twin has his commercial driver's license and drives trucks. So
Nice.
It's always
each,
good to have a doctor in the family, because when you get together at family gatherings, you can always kind of show what's going on and get some free consulting advice. Just
That's
kind of
right.
whip your foot out and be like, hey, does this toenail look ingrown? Like all that stuff. So that's helpful. And now you said from a twin perspective, you were born how many minutes earlier than your twin brother?
15 minutes earlier from my twin. My twin, I think, wrapped himself with his umbilical cord and
Classic.
caused some problems, but he's all great now.
And you've probably held that over his head for his entire life that you were born first.
Yeah.
So.
I like
It's,
how you said that as though it's his fault. Like you could have been the oldest, but if you weren't, dinking around with your umbilical cord, and
Yeah. It's been interesting to see, because I clearly identify as the middle child, and he has the typical characteristics of the youngest child. So
Of the
Right.
baby.
I always have that
Nice.
nature versus nurture debate in my head.
That's funny. Yeah, I was fascinated by that when we were talking on the phone in preparation for this episode. It was like just 15 minutes difference changes, that some of that birth order stuff.
Who's taller?
I'm taller by just a
It's
bit.
the 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a quarter of an inch taller than me and or my older brother too. I'm the tallest, but we're all unique. We all like doing different things. Cody's the older brother. Him and I get along. I mean, he actually just proposed to his now fiance this
Wow.
weekend. So shout out
Congrats.
Cody. Um, but him and I are direct opposites in personalities. He's more conservative. I'm more risk taking. And then my twin and I mean, I'm more of the math guy and whatever, and Connor doesn't care about, the numbers or the returns. He likes driving trucks and doing his thing. So
Yeah.
been very blessed to have a family at dinner table that doesn't
Yeah.
talk real estate. Now,
Yeah, that's true.
unfortunately, going back to having a brother who's a doctor, I have to field a bunch of uh, very uh, minimal percent chances that whatever's wrong with my girlfriend, she makes me text a picture to my brother and say, "Hey, is this okay, or is my ankle broken or whatever?" So
That's hilarious. Yeah, he's gonna start charging a consultation fee. Well, what's cool about your family? Obviously, you seem pretty close knit. But one thing I wanted to touch on, and we had talked about this kind of off camera. This weekend, you're doing something special for your family, specifically your mom.
yes, so being in Columbus, there's a bike race called Pelotonia that raises, I think, billions of dollars for cancer research, and it's been going for probably a decade now. And I've watched and probably strategically had a vacation that weekend so I didn't get guilt tripped into um, the bike race. But my mom did it last year, and then a couple weeks after that, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And fortunately, it was a really early diagnosis, and she's healthy now. But we all, as a family, are going and biking 100 miles with my mom this Saturday.
Yeah,
So
that's
I think
awesome.
everyone's prepared for it except me. So we'll see if I end up finishing the 100 miles.
Whether you
But
can, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So you just got to
Oh
go in there with the
shoot!
mindset that I'm going to finish this come hell or high water, and you'll get there.
That's right.
yeah, yeah,
And
it's gonna be
if you
me.
can't,
And
just phone me, and we'll carry you across the finish line. You know what I mean?
so I've been told there are shuttles that pick me up at the end if you don't finish for safety reasons. But I'm not letting myself confirm that, so I can hopefully tell myself there's no other option but to finish.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to kind of highlight that just from the perspective that, we talk about investing, but we kind of forget, like, man, we're all people. We all have people we care about, and we're all facing really just real life stuff. And next week, we're going to have a guest on that's talking about how he's using his real estate company to fight human trafficking. And so anytime, we have an opportunity to talk with guests, I love to get into the human side of it because there are things that are near and dear to our heart. And I know that's very probably rocked your family. I'm glad that you guys have kind of worked through a lot of that, but now it remains to be called a scar in that it's still visible and it's a part of who you are. And there's that awareness now of what people are going through. And sometimes it has to hit home, and then you have this new relationship with trying to end something or push back against it or fight it. So thank you for sharing that. But you have, you've got a lot of interesting things, but a lot of it is surrounded real estate, and you're only 24. Are you 24?
Four.
24.
Nice.
So, but you've got a lot of experience in that short amount of time. Talk to us about how you got into real estate, time at Ohio State, and kind of catch us into some of the good stuff.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. Probably starts in high school. My family was moving from Hilliard, Ohio to Upper Arlington, Ohio, which are just suburbs of Columbus. And I was helping my mom look for houses. And we met with a real estate agent who was probably one of the top producing real estate agents in the state. He's an individual agent that does probably 100 to 110 homes sold a year, which is
Wow.
crazy.
That's a lot.
And I helped find the house that my parents ended up buying. And they said, hey, you should talk to Jeff Mahler, and talk with Jeff. And he said, hey, if you ever want to, shadow me, do whatever, like, would love to have you. And I said, you know what? I want to do psychology. I want to help people. I don't want to sell houses. So I go through the rest of high school, and then probably my junior year, I have someone come in and speak about real estate development. And it just changed my trajectory. Knew I didn't want to do more schooling or write a bunch more papers that you would do in psychology. So I said, you know what? I think that's the right fit for me. So I graduated from high school and got my real estate license that next month, right before I went to Ohio State. Was trying to sell houses, just hustle as a 18-year-old, go to OSU, and I know I don't want to sell houses for the next 4 years. I really want to focus on how does real estate make money? Like, how can I learn that skill? So I end up going back to my high school and helping coach football. And I got paired up with a real estate developer named Bob Hoying, was also coaching football at the time. And I said, Bob, I will run coffees. I will do whatever I want, or whatever you want. Like, I just want to be surrounded by the business because I want to get into commercial real estate. And keep in mind, I didn't necessarily want to do residential, but when I was 18, the only thing I could put on my resume was go get my license.
Right.
It's not like people are getting
Right.
internships.
I went to Hondros. You ever heard of that before? And they're like, oh, is that a 4-year college? And you're like, it's a real estate.
It's a 4-month college.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did Hondros as an 18-year-old within, I think it was 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
So 10 hours a day, 4 days a week for 3 weeks, and then tested. So anyways, followed up. Bob said, hey, I don't know if there's anything. Met a bunch of other people in the company, and I didn't name drop Bob, which I think was a really good decision, because I built my own reputation with each of those folks. And then I followed up, and the CFO said, hey, we just started an internship. You should apply. So this is January 2020, my sophomore year, second semester. I apply, I get the internship, start February 2020. At the time, the finance team, which is the intern position that I was there, we had a hotel person, which was about 5% of the portfolio, and then someone overseeing the rest of the portfolio. When COVID hit, the person who hired me, who oversaw the rest of the portfolio, left the company. So then COVID hits, we have the hotel person and me, who's got 3 weeks of part-time experience, trying to figure out, are we going to be able to pay our banks back?
And so can I interject real quick here?
Absolutely.
Just to give some context, because you're being humble, and I appreciate that. Crawford Hoying is a development company, and that was the company that Bob owned?
Yep. So okay. Crawford Hoying is local to Columbus. They do Bridge Park. Bridge Park is a large mixed-use development that's kind of a trophy asset in Columbus, and in my opinion, set the standard for mixed-use developments in Ohio. I can't speak for outside of Ohio because I haven't seen much throughout the Midwest, but they do a lot in Columbus, Dayton, and they're branching out to a lot of different places, a lot of different investments. So they do mixed use development, but they also have hotels, industrial, very opportunistic, and they're in their probably close to 30th year of business. Started Brent Crawford back in the 90s when he was a student at OSU. He started buying up properties. Bob Hoying went to the NFL, came back, met Brent on the golf course. They said, hey, maybe we should pair up. And then they built this acquisition and then development business
That's now
over the
$2
last
billion of assets under management.
Yep, 2 billion. It was probably 1.7, 1.8 in this timeline in 2020.
So you are in this finance department, and just to give some context, you're underwriting, you're modeling existing assets and properties they owned to figure out, hey, what would it look like to refi? Or, if we pay this investor off, how does that change our cash flow? All of that different stuff, all of the ongoing financial kind of maintenance and forecasting that's involved with a portfolio that big. The head person that was overseeing that the 95% that wasn't hospitality left.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 3 years of experience.
And so did he leave because COVID happened and he was like, he was so uncertain about his position there that he just would rather retire early, or what was going on? Why did he leave? It seems like such an abrupt thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, COVID's weird. He's now got a bunch of entrepreneurial he's got a bunch of doors under him now, so he kind of went out and started doing his own thing. So gotcha. I can't necessarily tell what his was going through his brain during that time, but yes, going back to what Garrett said, we were responsible for all of the underwriting, which is the financial analysis for future properties, whether we're going to build it or buy it. And then all of the asset management, which is all of the financial analysis from the point of buying or building until we sell it. So
what was your mindset when he left?
Bring it on. I mean, COVID hit and all my classes went online, and I've never been a big school person. So I said, one, I was thankful I still had a job, because they could have very easily said, hey, you are not worth training and
patch
developing.
On the back.
Yeah. They said, hey, this is who we're going with, and let's figure this out. So and the 95%, that's more from a volume perspective. The 5% hotels, they are just so complicated and have so many different things.
The transaction volume of money coming in and out of those is disproportionate to the long-term, assets that they had elsewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, we it's March 2020. I come back from spring break. Boss leaves. Hotel person becomes my boss, which she was phenomenal. She was very instrumental in my career development. And it's us two working from home, reporting to the CFO, saying, hey, let's run a bunch of financial models. We had to build quite a few financial models for new properties or properties that were coming out of development or whatever. And then we were meeting with the exec team, giving them updates like, we can afford to abate 3 months of rent, or we can defer 2 months of rent, or we can, hotel occupancies 60%, 40%, 13%, 7%. Hey, I think we need to close. So we were reporting to the exec team in real time, here's where we think the portfolio stands from a financial health perspective. And because of that, we got to be in phone calls with lenders and investors, and we got to see so much of the business where I got to start seeing things as an owner rather than
as an intern.
As an intern, right?
So I want to pause on this, because I think this is really important. Everything kind of leading up to you getting that position took a lot of initiative, right? And you kind of held back from the name dropping, which was probably a discipline, because you're like, man, I know that if I bring that in, on paper, my chances go up. But you're just like, I want to be able to prove my worth here, that I'm the right pick in this company outside of my relationship with one of the owners. So kudos to you for doing that. I think there's a lot there that somebody could learn from. You get the job, being an intern, new position. And now, I mean, businesses, during COVID didn't know where the knife was going to fall. And so, it's easy to shore things up. One, maybe your job security went up when your boss left because they already felt short-staffed on the financial side of things. But your mindset was, I'm going to press into this instead of be like, oh man, I just got hired in as an intern. I'm going to be the first on the chopping block, kind of like throw the pity party. Was that kind of attitude recognized by the people around you that you were eager to press in and you saw the opportunity there? And what was the opportunity that you saw?
Yeah, great question. I, so March 2020, to set the scene, we have no idea what's going on. I'm sent home. My boss is sent home. New boss. Real estate world doesn't know what they're doing. Like we have no idea what the future looks like. So they kept me on, and I think it goes both ways, Garrett. One was I was super hungry for responsibility. I was going to we were all in lockdown, and there were plenty of different things people chose to do in lockdown. I, for better or worse, decided to work a crap ton. Um, and they could see that with just the product that I was pushing out. On the flip side of things, they were also very welcoming for me to kind of step up for that. Like, again, very easily could have said, hey, just kind of log your hours, do some of this pushing paper. But they gave me a lot of responsibility.
Right. They kind of gave you the freedom to do some of that work and to, instead of say, hey, stay in your lane.
Yeah, and a lot of the value I brought was, some of them were still in the weeds. Even, how real estate companies are. It's not like it's very technologically advanced. It's usually pretty still involved with the higher ups. Now, once there's pandemic hitting, those higher ups have bigger issues to deal with. So I could be doing all the things that they may have been doing a couple years ago. And that, from my perspective, was, all right, that's just much more value I can bring to the table, and hopefully I can get a full-time job, or just get a lot more responsibility. So through 6 months of just putting my head down and working a crap ton and learning, and I had a phenomenal teacher again. They promoted me to full-time analyst the August going into my junior year. So it was very reciprocated, where they said, hey, we like what you're seeing, and we'll match you. Let's keep building on this. They could have very well said, hey, we'll offer you when you are done with school 2.5 years later.
Yeah. What was your degree going to be in?
Real estate finance. It's kind of the same trajectory at OSU. You just have to pick which one to specialize in at your senior year. I chose real estate because I knew all the stuff, but real estate was the easier course. Sorry, OSU real estate folks. Then the finance structure. And I mean, I knew I'd be working for the next 2 years, where I needed the easier classes rather than, I didn't want to work all day, coach all night, work on other stuff, and then have, a finance 2-hour homework piece that I needed to turn in. So I had known a lot of the real estate stuff that they were teaching, whether it was from the license or work or other stuff. So that freed me up a little bit.
I love the mindset there. Part of, I think, why you stayed in that position once COVID hit is because you already had the mindset that got you the internship, that hunger. And so when crap hit the fan, nothing changed for you because you're still hungry, looking for experiences. And, talk about getting in the weeds. Sometimes in a different scenario, to use that analogy, we get in the weeds in that we don't see the bigger picture of what's in front of us. So, I mean, what would you say to somebody who's young, starting out in their professional career, maybe starting out in investing, when it comes to like paying your dues and coming in at an entry-level position and being able to see the bigger picture at that point versus somebody who's like, well, if I'm not going to come in at such and such level, then I'm not interested.
Yeah. I mean, for more context, when I was in high school, once I decided I wanted to do real estate, I took a janitor job on a 12,000 square foot commercial retail spot. So I was picking up trash for an hour every day and cleaning bathrooms and whatever. But it was, I think the job description was I was technically a on-site property manager tenant relationship or something. So I mean, I've cleaned toilets, I've power washed, grease off stuff. Like I've had my fair share of foul smells before this point. So I think I always say before you get the job, the best preparation you can do for a job is doing the work. Like the best way to prepare for work is work. And
Right.
I think nowadays you can build a lot more hurdles for yourself by telling yourself you need to read this book or you need to enroll in this workshop or whatever. And really, you the thing that's going to make you really good at your job is doing your job really well. It's not necessarily going to be
Right. At a certain point, you
um,
just got to do it. You can't talk
yeah.
about it or keep trying to go to school to prepare for it. I mean, it's like how people get stuck in analysis paralysis with properties. At some point, you just got to buy so you can learn real estate.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think too, when I first started in real estate, or even before I was in real estate, it was a lot easier for me to look at somebody's situation, their financial situation, the properties they owned, their success in their career or profession, and want to say, man, that person got so lucky. And now that I've been in it for 5 years, I want to go back to 26-year-old Garrett and throttle him by the neck because I'm like, listen, man, you're totally ignorant. People that are where they are, that's not luck. I mean, short of the 1% of somebody who like inherits a trust fund or wins the lottery, the other 99.9% of successful people out there got there because they did something right, not because they got lucky. And I realized it was insecurity in myself that caused me to kind of want to use that blanket justification and rationalization of like, oh, they just got lucky, because I'm just unhappy about where I'm at. And you just got to take ownership for where you're at and change that mindset so you can work your plan and forget about everybody else. And it's easy to get caught into that trap, especially with Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, people's success is being flaunted everywhere. And even what seems to be like someone's success. That's the other thing I learned about real estate is you go to these real estate investment conferences, and I don't know if you've ever participated in one of those, but it's like a who's who of like flexing on everybody. And it's like, hey, how many units you have? And it's like, oh, I'm up to 500 units. And it's like, oh, I'm a part of 1,000 units and stuff. And you're like, holy cow.
I'm part of 1% of 1,000.
Yeah, I have a joke that I haven't figured out how to craft yet, but it's basically three guys own the whole town or the whole town of 100 homes, and they walk into the bar and they say they're real estate investors and they're like 33% partners or whatever. And based off of all of their conversations in the bar, you would think that there would be 300 homes in the
town.
Yeah, they're all like, I own 100 homes. I own 100 homes. I also own 100. There's a lot of rabbit holes you could get into with that. But let's go back to your story real quick. So you were offered a full-time position, and you were finishing up school. So kind of catch us up closer to now. What are you still with them? Are you still working full-time with them? And then how did this maybe lead into you investing into real estate personally?
Yep. So good question. So fast forward, going into my junior year, have a full-time job, learning real estate finance. I then buy a property my junior year, keep working full-time because I could use the salary to buy it.
What property did you buy your junior year?
I bought a 4-ish bedroom house on campus.
Okay.
And then
did you live in it by yourself, or did you rent out bedrooms, or what did you do?
I actually just straight up rented it.
Okay.
There were weird parts during COVID where plan was to live in it and then didn't. But anyways, bought it, rented it out. Senior year, bought another one, which was a duplex down in Kentucky. At that point, I was overseeing asset management for this $2 billion portfolio, learning a crap ton, but kind of reached a peak of like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to be doing for the next 5 years. So, and I'm not saying you need to know that, but it didn't look like I'd be growing as much as I did the last 2 years. So I knew I had executed on a small level, and I knew how the big dogs do it on a large level. And I had a few investors say, hey, like whenever you're ready, let me know because I'd love to fund your first bigger deal. So then I tell them, hey, this has been awesome, but I think I graduated, and then I said, hey, I think I got to bounce. But they were very supportive. They knew it was coming. They didn't think it would be this early, and I also didn't think it would have been that early. But it was just the best thing at the time. I kept my license here, so that was really great at keeping the relationship. And I'm actually in their office, and my relationship with all of them are great. They're very supportive, and hopefully we can do some deals together here soon. But now 2023 hits and I don't have a job. I'm telling everyone I want to do real estate. Interest rates are up, deal flow down. I'm hoping I can buy, I kind of wanted to play in that too big for small guys and too small for big guys. And by guys, I mean everyone. I don't necessarily just mean male or female.
Yeah, you just got yourself canceled.
Yeah.
Try, buddy.
Well, I usually say dogs, so I don't know which one's better. Like too big for the small dogs and too small for the big dogs.
Just let you know you can't win.
Yeah. So 2023, I'm underwriting. I'm like, man, I can't figure out how to make these work. And I got to a point where it was like, do I, try forcing a deal to just, get some doors under me? And those were late night thoughts. And every time I'd just be like, no, I'm not going to build this business like that. So 2023, I don't buy anything. And keep in mind, like I'm renting a 400 square foot studio. I'm living bare bones. It's not like
Cheap,
I'm
right.
Living the life I'd love to live. And then 2024 comes, and I'm having some traction on LinkedIn, and some people start recruiting me and saying, hey, like I'd love to have you join, blah blah blah. And it was a variety of positions. And I said, hey, I don't think I'm going to get much more out of this than what I did, a year ago. But if you give me a scope of work, like I gotta make some money. So I ended up in 2024 started consulting for a good bit of real estate companies that are kind of in that too big where they need someone with full-time experience, but they're a little too small to actually pay someone full-time. Mm-hmm. So now I'm consulting for a couple businesses, whether it's real estate tech, real estate brokerages, real estate developers that need someone who has finance experience, asset management experience, a little bit of brokerage experience, a little bit of property management, janitorial experience. Mm-hmm. And that's why I spend so much time on telling my story, because hopefully it can tell you a little bit on where I can plug into different companies. So right now that takes up about 80% of my time building that consulting business. It's monthly retainers, fees. It keeps the lights on, but trying to get in on the equity side of things, whether that's building real estate portfolio or working with more companies and getting some sort of promote or something like that. So the rest of the 20% is still focused on buying stuff. So I'm in contract on a 4 unit right now. Just had the inspection yesterday. We'll see if we proceed, but that's where I'm at right now, and it's been really fun. Learned a lot the last year and a half, and wouldn't redo a single thing.
That's the thing I want to encourage people with, just listening to your story, is don't be afraid to get in and try experiences that you don't even know where they're going to lead.
Right.
I mean, you have to have some kind of goal. Like, I'm not going to go and be like, I'm going to learn an instrument because I think that's going to help me someday. Like, I have not a musical bone in my body. Doesn't relate to real estate. But once you kind of know the trajectory you want to go in, get experiences and put your hands on stuff, because, you know, the consulting work that you're doing now was probably built on the foundation of the reps that you got in Crawford Hoying, and that whole progression of your professional career over a very short time. And so, you know, now it's kind of set you in a direction and clarified a little bit more of what you do want and what you don't want. And there is no substitute to doing. So that is, I think that's why I was really struck by kind of hearing your story and where things have gone. But
All right, we're going to jump into our smaller pockets segment. So, Casey, this is the part of the show where you tell us about your worst real estate deal. What happened, what went wrong, and then what did you learn from it so our listeners can avoid the same mistake?
Yeah. So I haven't had too many bad situations. I've only got a small portfolio right now, and luckily those two are good. But I did have an inspection yesterday, and inspections are never good. Like you should never expect anything good coming out of an inspection, it's their job. Um, but yesterday I'm buying this 4 unit, and a couple of different things. One, it was built in 1885, so
Nice.
I'm gonna expect some old stuff.
some skeletons in the
Um,
closet, yeah. No way. Is that the lead in?
there wasn't a skeleton in the closet, but we're down in the basement, and we're talking, we're debating if this is just wet dirt coming from the basement or if it's sewage or whatever.
Yeah.
There's pooling water sitting in the bottom of the furnace.
Nice.
Oh.
We take the cover off the furnace, and inside I hear the inspector say, "Where's the piston in this?" And I'm like, "What?" And then I look, he didn't say, "Where's the piston in there?" He said, "There's a pistol in there."
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
nice.
There's a firearm sitting in the bottom of a furnace in the
No.
basement after we're like,
No way.
so
It's
that's
probably a murder weapon.
yeah. I called the police, called the landlord, whatever, and they said, "All right, we picked it up. It was good. It was actually just a BB gun."
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, that was a little rocky. But from a actual deal, worst case scenario, been lucky. I mean, we've had some tenants that smoked in it, but each of those things you learn from and whatnot. I will say in 2023, I was renovating some of the house and doing demo stuff and stuff that wasn't any specific, like, I really needed to be skilled in. And I will say one of the big learning lessons was, I wasn't making much money, and I said, I'll try doing this myself. I mean, those renovations lasted way too long, and I ended up should have just hired someone to do it in the first place. But
Yeah.
it was nice to say, all right, I got my hands dirty a little bit. I got a little bit of street cred,
Now
talking
Right.
to
I
real
know I
estate
tried.
investors.
Isn't it
Yeah,
isn't it
and
sickening how easy it looks on paper? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna move the wall. I'm gonna put the vanity in. I'll be out on a weekend. This is gonna be no big deal. And
And
then
you're
it
like,
takes about four times
I
as long.
can't get this P trap to stop leaking.
yeah, unfortunately, my brain's like, well, we should move the tub over here, make it a shower over here, blah, blah, blah. And then I just end up getting too busy.
In
and
theory, it sounds
it's
good.
not worth anyone's time at that point. So
That's
I
hilarious.
I had a buddy who has general contractor experience and just hired him out to finish it. So hopefully that's going to be done here in the next week.
It is super empowering when you pay somebody to do something and you leave for a week and then come back a week later and see that stuff has been done. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ever going to do this again. Like, this is such a great feeling. So I think there's a time and place. Like, I feel like it's good to get experience, kind of know how to even manage someone who is the hands-on portion of that. Because if you're so ignorant, it's just easy to get taken for a ride by people or not know the questions you should ask. So you have to have kind of a surface level experience. So hopefully that's what that was for you. But okay, we're going to go into what we call our little nugget. So Casey, this is the part of our show where you give our listeners, it could be a practical takeaway, a piece of advice, a fundamental principle, really whatever you want applied to business, real estate, your personal development.
Gotcha. Yeah, my fundamental principle that I've been focused on as I reflect on what I've been up to recently, I'm really buying into what's got the lowest or what's got low downside and high upside, meaning, worst case scenario, things probably stay the same, or I pay for this anyways, or, the worst case scenario is I might have to pay a little extra pocket, or it might take a little extra time, but the upside so outweighs that. And that is consistent with what's the downside and upside on quitting my job when I'm 22 going on to 23, or downside, upside on taking a stab at renovating as much as I can of the bathroom. Like, either way, I'm probably going to pay for someone to finish it. I might as well try something and learn from it.
Right.
And I think that's an important investing perspective, life perspective. If the downsides are very minimal and the upsides are, if you can swing for as many home runs and still know you're probably going to hit singles a good bit, then I'll be swinging all day. So that's what I've been focusing on. It's how I've been thinking of structuring my consulting business, how I'm structuring real estate investments.
Yeah, I mean, it's betting on yourself, so.
Yeah, and I think betting on yourself sounds really risky and really, I don't know if I'm gonna, if I want to take that much risk. Like in 2020, everyone had these great jobs and thought that they were, going to be there for the next 20 years, and then they were laid off or out of work, or and I think that being that early in my career kind of opened my eyes to saying, well, what's actually the worst case scenario? I come back and work probably the same job in a year from now, or I figure it out and have a better life, make more money, whatever is your goal. So that's probably my little principle that I've been focusing on, and it's done well for me in the most recent years, and hopefully it continues to be fruitful.
Yeah, that's a great decision-making kind of paradigm to have, from the stocks and bonds side of thing, the Warren Buffetts of the world, what has asymmetrical risk reward, minimal downside with the most optimal upside. And it does apply across the board. What's been one of the best resources in your business development?
I don't think there's a replacement on mentors. I've been fortunate enough to meet with coffees for people that I probably have no business getting coffees with, or having mentors that just went an extra step further than what they should have for me, and it's paid back in dividends, and I try to keep them close and pay them back and pay it forward to the next generation. So
I want to tie what you just said to your earlier summary of kind of your story. Some people are like, okay, great. I hear mentors, all of these different things, like, It's not what you know, it's who you know. It's not your net worth, it's your network. So people understand, and it's commonly acknowledged, that finding someone in the space that is further along than you is the right thing to do and very powerful. But then there's a frustration, I think, in some people of like, well, how do I find that person? And I just want to make a disclaimer that if you're not doing it, if you're not actively pursuing something, then you're going to continue to not find that person. The reason you've been able to find people that are willing to mentor you is because you are actually taking actionable steps
right,
in your life and in that direction, and that's recognized and reciprocated. If I see somebody who's like, oh, I really want to invest in real estate, and you've been telling me that for 2 years, I'm not going to give you my time because you haven't shown to me that you actually want to do that. And it's as simple as, have you actually taken the steps, or are you still in the same spot? And so if you're out there like, how do I find this mythical mentor? You probably aren't in the game, and you need to start taking action. And I promise you, somebody will surface that could be a mentor for you where you're at.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Garrett, can I add one small thing very quickly?
Please.
I think you also don't need to prop up mentors to be, godlike. I think if you can pick and choose what you want to learn from each mentor, you don't need to take on their bad habits or their bad way of doing business or whatever.
Yeah.
You can have, lifestyle mentors and health mentors and business mentors and all of that. And that takes a lot of stress on both parties to, be this formal figure for you. And I've been very fortunate. Like, I know who I look up to for relationship mentorship and health mentorship and all of that. So I think that will help identify people and specific things that you want to learn.
Yeah, maybe there's somebody around you already that you can learn something from, and they're not going to check all 5 areas, but in a given topic, they have something to offer you. Kind of reframing your mindset that way. How can people find out more about you, follow your success? What's that look like?
Yeah, good question. Follow me on LinkedIn, Casey Calhoun. That is my landing page right now, but here in the next weeks or months, you'll see more hiring someone to do more social media, to do long form content. So that'll be exciting. And then we'll have our website up and running here shortly. We've had to do some rebranding, but if you follow me on LinkedIn and you can message me or schedule time with me, that's all great. And we'll keep in touch.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you for coming on today. I know you're early in your career, but I think because of just starting early, you've gotten some reps in, and it's going to continue to build. Hopefully an encouragement for people listening today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to a baby-faced 24-year-old talk about real estate.
Don't worry, we've all been there. So,
all right, take it easy.
As always, excited that you joined us for another episode of the Reinvest Podcast. Stay tuned every Tuesday for new episodes. And if you want to learn how you can use your hard-earned capital to diversify into real estate, go to our website, lv5capital.com, and shoot us a message. Move farther, reach higher, and grow deeper. We'll see you next time.